Today is not the day to make excuses for lazy Chargers takes. When Los Angeles misses on a pick, everybody gets loud. But when the plan starts showing teeth, suddenly people want to treat it like some tiny detail? Not happening. There's a rookie pushing back against doubt, a massive trench rumor, an offense starting to take a new shape with Justin Herbert, and a dirty work addition that could shift the physical identity of this team. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because today we're going all the way in. We have to start with Genesis Smith, because this story is exactly where real analysis separates itself from empty noise. When the Chargers moved around in the 2026 draft and came away with 8 picks, plenty of people treated the process like chaos, like trading, stacking selections, and attacking depth meant there was no clear direction. But Joe Hortiz was not trying to win the room in the moment. He was trying to build a roster that can survive a full season. Of course, Akeem Mesidor and Jake Slaughter are going to grab the spotlight. That is normal. Early picks always carry weight. But the name starting to irritate the skeptics is Genesis Smith, the safety out of Arizona. A pick that split opinions because his profile did not arrive clean, polished, and ready for easy praise. The concern was obvious: tackling, contact, physical consistency. He missed 18 tackles in 2025, with a 19.8% missed tackle rate. That is not some small footnote. That is the kind of number that makes a coaching staff slow down the snaps until a player proves he can finish plays at the pro level. But this is the part people skip because it takes nuance. Deep coverage, ball instincts, and range do not just pop up out of nowhere. A player either has that natural feel for space, routes, timing, and angles, or he spends his whole career chasing from behind. Smith had 6 pass breakups and 25 stops in his final college season, and that kind of ball-hawking safety profile has real value for the Chargers. He already picked off Trey Lance at minicamp, and from what has been coming out of the off-season program, that was not just some random flash. He is turning heads because he can run, cover ground, process the game, and give this defense a possibility that changes everything. If Smith becomes reliable on the back end, Derwin James can come down closer to the line more often, attack, disguise pressure, and become the kind of problem no offense wants to solve on every snap. So yes, the tackling concern is still real. Nobody is pretending he turned into a finished product in June. But the people who called this pick a failure too early may need to sit in a little silence right now. Because if the Chargers can turn a defender with elite instincts into even an acceptable tackler, this pick stops being controversial and starts looking like a strategic steal. That is the aggressive part of the plan. Los Angeles is not only drafting safe players, it is betting on tools that can change roles, formations, and fear. And speaking of physical fear, the next story goes right into the trenches. Vita Vea landing in Charger speculation is not casual small talk. Not because Tampa Bay is just sliding a trench monster across the counter, but because contract tension, roster direction, franchise timing, and AFC ambition create exactly the kind of opening a serious team has to monitor with its teeth showing. And if there is one coach in the NFL who can look at a destructive nose tackle and understand what that does to a team's DNA, it is Jim Harbaugh. Vea is not just size. That is the mistake people make when they talk about him like he is only a human wall in the middle of the line. He changes the math for an offense. When a nose tackle at that level demands constant help, the run game loses clean lanes. The center cannot climb comfortably to the second level. The guard has to think twice before leaving on a combo block, and edge rushers get cleaner angles. That changes the whole defense without needing to invent some new tactical revolution every week. For the Chargers, the read is brutally simple. If Los Angeles wants to stop being viewed as a pretty team on paper and start being treated like a real physical problem, it has to win more dirty battles. The AFC does not forgive a light defense. Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati, all those games demand presence inside. You can have talented coverage, you can have famous edge rushers, you can have an elite quarterback. But if the opponent runs through your chest in the third quarter, your season turns into empty talk. That is why Vea makes so much sense as a name to watch. He would help protect the linebackers, create inside pressure against quarterbacks who hate a dirty pocket, and give the front a rougher, more commanding, more uncomfortable identity. Harbaugh wants violence with structure. He wants a team that does not ask permission. Vea speaks that language perfectly. The heavy part is the cost. A player like that does not arrive without difficult conversations, real money, and compensation that forces the front office to weigh the present against the future. But that is where ambition shows up. Sometimes the question is not whether the move feels comfortable. The question is whether it changes the ceiling. And Vita Vea in the middle of this defense would raise the ceiling for Los Angeles by force. The conversation flips to the offense now, but not in the easy way. Anybody can scream that the Chargers needed to sign a big-name receiver after Keenan Allen left. That is the automatic take, the lazy take. Los Angeles chose the tougher path. Instead of chasing a headline, the front office looked inside the room. looked at Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Tre Harris, added David Njoku, reinforced the interior line with Tyler Biadasz, Kayode Awasika, and Cole Strange, and handed Justin Herbert to Mike McDaniel. That is confidence. And when confidence works, it looks like vision. When it fails, it becomes a target. That is why this part carries so much weight. Tre Harris is the name that can turn that decision into a violent win. He arrived as a second-round pick in 2025, with 2,015 yards and 15 touchdowns across his final 2 seasons at Ole Miss. But his rookie year was quiet. 30 catches, 324 yards, and 1 touchdown. Nothing that scares anybody. Nothing that forces a defense to rip up its plan. But context matters. He was buried in a crowded room, learning the speed of the NFL, trying to earn space while the offense was still searching for its identity. Now the door is open. Keenan left 122 targets behind. McConkey should keep being the volume receiver, the separator, the middle-of-the-field answer, the steady piece. Johnston is also fighting for a bigger role, but Harris has a different path. 6'3", strong frame, vertical threat, ability to attack outside the numbers, and the kind of receiver who does not need 10 targets a game to hurt a defense. That is where McDaniel changes the board. In Miami, his offense finished top 8 in total yards and passing yards across his 4 years there, and in 2023 it led the league in total yards and passing yards. That kind of play caller knows how to create space before the ball even leaves the quarterback's hand. He knows how to force a defense into the wrong choice. He knows how to spread production without asking every player to win isolated every single snap. So, if Harris showed up bigger at minicamp and Harbaugh put him among the team's 3 elite receivers, that is not just June praise. That is an internal warning. The franchise is saying, we are not treating this kid like a background piece. And I want to see the fan base's read in the comments. Does Tre Harris clear 700 yards in 2026? Or does he still need 1 more year? Because to me, if Herbert gets time, if McDaniel builds rhythm, and if Harris gets real targets, that jump is not fantasy. It is a possible result of an offense that stopped apologizing for believing in its own players. Alec Ingold is the kind of signing a lot of people ignore until Sunday arrives and the offense starts moving bodies backward. Fullbacks do not sell fantasy. Fullbacks do not win social media arguments against big-name receivers. But on a Jim Harbaugh team with Mike McDaniel calling the offense, that position can become an identity tool. And identity matters a lot for the Chargers. Ingold comes with the kind of story that matches what Los Angeles is trying to build. He was a dominant high school athlete in Wisconsin, won State Player of the Year, went to Wisconsin after initially committing to Northern Illinois, changed positions, found his home at fullback, and became one of the best utility players in the league after going undrafted. That already says plenty. The guy had to adapt, block, do invisible work, survive without glamour, and still become a starter. With the Raiders, he showed up fast. In Miami, with McDaniel, he took on a role more connected to the system, especially as a zone-blocking piece. That is the key. The Chargers did not bring in Ingold just to fill a roster spot. They brought in someone who knows the coordinator's language, understands the angles, knows where to fit his body, and can speed up the installation of a new offense for an entire locker room. That also explains why the Scott Matlock fullback experiment loses momentum. Matlock improved, he is versatile, and he deserves respect for the effort. But a scheme change demands a different body type, a different read, a different kind of timing. Ingold is a specialist, and when you are trying to protect Justin Herbert, boost the run game, and create faster actions, having a specialist who has already lived in that system is not a luxury. It is a competitive shortcut. The 2025 numbers do not scream. 17 games, 8 catches, 52 yards, 2 carries for 9 yards, and 21% of the special team snaps. But a good fullback does not only show up in the stat sheet, he shows up when the running back cuts untouched, when the linebacker arrives half a second late, when the defense has to respect motion, play action, split zone, leak routes, and contact at the second level. So to me, Ingold can be one of the quiet heroes of 2026. Not because he is going to become a box score star, but because he can give the Chargers offense something it has missed for years: organized brutality. And if McDaniel really uses him to clear lanes, sell misdirection, and protect Herbert, Los Angeles is not just adding a fullback. It is putting an extra helmet on the idea of becoming more physical. The message today is simple. Stop measuring the Chargers only by headline noise. Genesis Smith can push back against criticism with range and instinct. Vita Vea, if that window opens, would be a statement punch to the AFC. Tre Harris has a real path to break out with Herbert and McDaniel. Alec Ingold may be the physical detail that makes this offense heavier and smarter. That is roster building. That is identity being born in the details. If you want to follow every sign of this shift in Los Angeles, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and comment which one of these 4 stories changes the Chargers' ceiling the most.